If you've ever traveled through the Deep South, then there's one highway that you've probably spent quite a bit of time on: Interstate 20. Running for 1,539 miles across the southern U.S., connecting major metro areas such as Dallas-Fort Worth and Atlanta, along with other regionally impactful cities such as Columbia, Birmingham, and Jackson. I-20 has been a vital artery for goods and people across the South. Interstate 20 has opened up many areas in the Deep South to economic development and forms a core backbone of the mobility options for the many Americans who have relocated to this part of the country. On this video, we're going to talk about what it's like to travel on this major interstate and what you can expect. But first, let's take a brief look at the history of it. Interstate 20, like many of the others we discussed here, was rooted in the 1957 Interstate and Defense Highways Plan. The routing for Interstate 20 largely followed that of existing U.S. highways. Between Pecos, Texas and Meridian, Mississippi, it largely followed the U.S. 80 corridor, or even outright replaced that route on some locations. From Meridian to Birmingham, it turns northwest to follow the U.S. 11 corridor, and then U.S. 78 between Birmingham and Atlanta. While in South Carolina, it departs from the US 78 corridor, which heads for Charleston, and was routed towards Columbia and to its eastern terminus at Florence, South Carolina. The original path through Dallas took I-20 through downtown, but it was rerouted to the south to now serve as a bypass of Dallas and Fort Worth. Interstate 20 fundamentally transformed the Deep South economically. Tremendous economic growth in the region in the late 20th century can be largely attributed to the presence of I-20. With two of the largest and fastest growing metro areas in the country in Atlanta and Dallas-Fort Worth being located along the route. And a present day analysis shows that over 63,000 freight intensive businesses are located along the highway, moving 208 million tons of freight valued at $159 billion annually. The Texas segment of I-20 is particularly vital, serving as a major driver of the economy and a key thoroughfare for the booming oil and gas industry in West Texas. In 2003, North Carolina proposed extending I-20 from Florence to Wilmington, North Carolina. However, South Carolina expressed that it has zero interest in upgrading US 76 to extend I-20 to Wilmington. I mean, why would South Carolina make it easier for people to reach Wilmington rather than Myrtle Beach? But now that we have some brief history on the route, let's talk about what it's like to travel on it today. What can you expect to see? Let's find out. Interstate 20 has its humble beginning at Interstate 95 in Florence, South Carolina, at this partial cloverleaf interchange. If you're coming eastbound into this interchange, then you will have the option of continuing into the city along I-20 business. Heading west out of Florence, our control city is the state capital of Columbia. Between here and Columbia, you're not going to see much but some good old Carolina countryside. However, the small city of Camden has some basic travel amenities should you need to stop. Shortly after entering Richland County, the home county of Columbia, I-20 expands to 6 lanes, and you'll start to notice a bit of suburban development. One thing of note about South Carolina is that it has very strict annexation laws, so much of the development surrounding its largest cities is unincorporated and governed by the counties. Though in Columbia's case, it annexed Fort Jackson, so the city limits do indeed stretch quite far east. The first major interchange here is with I-77, which is signed for Charlotte and Charleston. Charlotte, Columbia, Charleston, Cleveland, and Charleston, West Virginia. Interestingly enough, I-77 goes through several major cities starting with C and provides indirect access to Charleston, South Carolina via I-26. So perhaps we can nickname that one the C Interstate. In the Columbia area, I-20 forms the northern side of a beltway around the city with I-26 and I-77. At South Carolina 277, a highway that was supposed to be Interstate 277, but ended up a state highway for reasons, access is provided to downtown Columbia if you want to check out the Capitol and other sites. On the western side of Columbia, we encounter I-26 in a simple cloverleaf. I-26 grants access to the Greenville-Spartanburg area or your last opportunity to head down to Charleston. We maintain 6 lanes as we pass through the western Columbia suburbs, including the popular suburb of Lexington. Then it is on to Augusta. Before hitting Augusta, you can take US 1 a little to the south to see the town of Aiken, and just off the interstate is the Battle of Aiken tourist attraction from the Civil War battle that was fought here. As we enter North Augusta, we encounter our first and only auxiliary route for I-20 in South Carolina, which is I-520. It forms a loop around Augusta and is signed for Augusta and North Augusta. Continuing west, we cross the Savannah River on a simple bridge appropriately named the Savannah River Bridge, to enter Georgia and Augusta proper. Welcome to Georgia. As we cross into Georgia, the road quality gets better and the road gets wider. 6 lanes as we pass by Augusta. Off exit 199, the Augusta National Golf Club can be found if you want to stop by and say what's up to Tiger. Georgia is a bit different with annexation laws, at least outside of the Atlanta area. So Augusta has a huge land area as it merged with the surrounding county years ago. As we re-encounter I-520, you have the opportunity to stop at some of your favorite big box shops in this suburban style landscape, as all of the usual suspects are present here. As we head west, you see the signage. You know what's next. Atlanta is on the horizon. So enjoy this peaceful drive through nature while you can, because it's about to get wild. At exit 121, you'll see signage for Buckhead, but don't be too alarmed. It's not the Buckhead that you're thinking of, but rather a very small town of only a couple hundred people. Atlanta's reach is far, but not this far, at least not yet. You are, however, entering Atlanta's orbit once you reach the city of Covington. In eastern Georgia, US 278 is hanging around I-20 and joins us in Covington for a bit. And this is where I-20 picks up 6 lanes and will hold 6 or more for a long period of time. As we reach more inner suburbs such as Conyers, the traffic will start to pick up. The mall at Stonecrest provides a gathering spot for the residents who populate the massive sea of single-family homes in this part of the Atlanta metro area. There's even a Walmart along with plenty of parking. So feel free to come and join in the suburban shopping paradise. 8 lanes is the configuration as we approach the perimeter, Interstate 285. This dated interchange can get locked up often, but Georgia DOT is in the process of rebuilding it into a more modern design. In the Atlanta area, I-20 is named the Ralph David Abernathy Freeway for the civil rights leader. We've got a 4+1 HOV lane configuration inside the perimeter. We are in DeKalb County, and though Fulton is Atlanta's home county, it does partially spill over into DeKalb. This section of I-20 is relatively light in traffic compared to the other Atlanta interstates. If you look hard enough, you'll see the tiny Atlanta city limit sign as you pass under Glenwood Avenue. Welcome to Atlanta, where the players play and they ride on those things like every day. And I also heard that the parties don't stop around here until 8 in the morning. Here we're passing through East Atlanta, and be sure to check out East Atlanta Village for some fine dining spots. Moreland Avenue marks the boundary between Fulton and DeKalb, and shortly after we reach the downtown connector, I-75 and I-85. This gargantuan interchange south of downtown is responsible for handling this junction of 3 major interstate highways. To the right, the Atlanta State Capitol and downtown skyline are visible. You can exit to the south here to get to the airport, or exit to the north to spend the day in traffic. Choose wisely. Just to the north after this interchange is the Atlanta University Center, where you can find Morehouse, Clark, and Spelman universities. Traveling through here, you wouldn't even know you're in a major metropolis aside from the traffic, as we're surrounded by a large amount of trees. The areas around I-20 aren't as built up as the other interstates, so after passing through West Atlanta, it's time to pass through the perimeter once again. This interchange is also dated and planned to be redesigned in the future by the Georgia DOT. Try to stay in the far left lane, as the right lanes are usually jammed up from people coming off of I-285 onto westbound I-20. When you pass outside of Atlanta's Ring Road, you're not in the clear. The suburban development is only beginning. As we cross the Chattahoochee River, we enter Cobb County, a favorite county for northeastern transplants to move to. Six Flags Over Georgia is visible to the left. Then we quickly leave Cobb County and enter Douglas County, where we pass by the unsurprisingly named county seat of Douglasville. I-20 is 6 to 8 lanes in the Douglasville area. Through the rest of Georgia, shockingly enough, all of this area along I-20 is a part of the Atlanta metro area. Yes, people are commuting from this far out to the Atlanta core area, so Atlanta's reach goes all the way to the Alabama state line. Talk about total state domination. Next up is Alabama. Now we enter Alabama in Cleburne County, which is free from Atlanta's grip for now. Surprisingly, Alabama provides 6 lanes out here, at least until the interchange with Alabama 46. Things are quiet out here for the most part until you reach Oxford. Oxford is a city of around 22,000 people, which attributes most of its growth to the presence of Interstate 20, along with this centralized location between Atlanta and Birmingham. The roadway out here is 6 lanes and was in solid condition the last time I drove through. Our next town of significance is Leeds, which contains a Buc-ee's gas station that I highly recommend you stop at if you have time. They have over 100 gas pumps, so there's enough gas for everyone. It's a bit more hilly in these parts than most people realize, as northern Alabama contains the southern end of the Appalachian Mountains. I-20 through Alabama is 6 lanes for quite a distance, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is eventually 6 or more lanes for the full distance between Atlanta and Birmingham. Our first interstate encounter in the Birmingham area is I-459, a loop that runs along the southeastern side of the metro. It's signed for Montgomery, Tuscaloosa, and someplace you've never heard of called Gadsden, which it really should be Chattanooga, but Alabama is guilty of a bit of homerism here. The orientation of this interstate makes it an excellent bypass for I-20 traffic that doesn't have any local business in Birmingham. Continuing west, we find the main line I-59, which is also signed for Gadsden, along with Tuscaloosa, as it joins us heading into downtown Birmingham. Don't worry, the concurrency of I-20 and I-59 is nothing like I-85 and 75 in Atlanta, as I-59 is more of a minor interstate highway. In downtown, I-20 and I-59 were recently rebuilt, and it is a fantastic drive along with great views of the Birmingham skyline. Giant overhead signs make sure that you don't miss I-65 from Montgomery and Huntsville, as you admire the sights of downtown Birmingham to your left and right. Use the exit for Caraway Boulevard if you want to explore the city on the ground. Otherwise, we take a turn to the southwest as we exit the downtown area. Things drop down to 2 lanes again as we pass by Bessemer and meet I-459 again. Then next up is Tuscaloosa, home of the University of Alabama. Roll Tide, as they say. I-59 spits out a spur route known as I-359 that takes you directly into the heart of Tuscaloosa and also provides access to the university. Alabama signs Meridian as our next control city, as there's not much left in Alabama after Tuscaloosa along this route, so welcome to Mississippi. It's only fitting that the first photo on Google in Mississippi has 4 sheriff's cars waiting at the state line for you. So you know what that means. Watch your speed, or Mississippi is prepared to collect an entrance fee. After crossing into the Meridian city limits, we have a cloverleaf interchange with US 45, which Mississippi has upgraded to a freeway around the eastern side of the city. Along the interstate in Meridian, you get the full gamut of big box style shopping that typically lines them. The downtown area of Meridian has seen better days, but it's worth taking a stroll through to see for yourself. There are some historic buildings down there. West of the city, I-59 finally leaves us alone and heads south towards Hattiesburg and ultimately the New Orleans area via I-10. Up next for us is the capital city of Jackson. You'll know that you're in the Jackson area once the thick Mississippi forest gives way to suburban development. The suburb of Pearl offers some chain restaurant dining and other amenities such as hotels and gas stations. I-20 is pretty rough in Jackson, so you'll be weaving and dodging potholes through here. And we get a series of back-to-back close interchanges along with a short concurrency with I-55. One good thing about Jackson not growing much is that this section will quickly become overwhelmed and bottlenecked with any decent amount of new residents moving to the area. After I-55 exits to the south for Macomb and New Orleans, we hit I-220 on the western side of Jackson. This one is signed for North Jackson and Yazoo City. Yazoo. This ends the action in Jackson, and now it gets ruled as we make our way to Vicksburg. US 61 joins as we cross into the city limits of Vicksburg, while the exit for Clay Street takes you straight into downtown. Vicksburg was the site of another major Civil War battle, and today has a couple of large casinos sitting along the Mississippi River. Vicksburg is a part of the Mississippi Delta region, which is often referred to as the most southern place on earth. So if you want to experience deep South culture, Vicksburg is the place to be. As we cross the Vicksburg Bridge, you'll see the sign for the Louisiana state line. However, you don't get the Welcome to Louisiana sign for a good mile or so, as the freeway is elevated over the Mississippi River floodplain. But then we finally see it, and it is posted in French and English, owing to the state's colonial French influence. Things are largely uneventful out here as we pass by towns such as Tallulah and Rayville. Our first major stop in Louisiana is Monroe. Monroe is actually the founding city of Delta Airlines, which later moved to its current headquarters in Atlanta. Delta Airlines, the Mississippi Delta. Now it all suddenly makes sense. Now, don't expect too much from the condition of the road out here. It is Louisiana after all. But my car did survive the trip. The next control city is Shreveport. Now, Shreveport is interesting as there's a lot going on here, transportation-wise. First, there's a suburb to the east known as Bossier City. Ah, yes. I know you love how I nailed the pronunciation on that one. Fortunately, I happened to catch the local news when I was in Shreveport a while back, and they were talking quite a bit about Bossier City. We have a spur to the north known as I-220. It bypasses Shreveport to the north, but isn't worth taking as an I-20 bypass, but it is useful if you want to reach I-49 north towards Texarkana. Louisiana is in the process of extending it to the south. The freeway feels tight through here and is in terrible shape. After crossing into Shreveport proper from Bossier City, you have an exit with direct access to the riverfront. There are also some nice historic homes to the south of here. Next up is Interstate 49. This one takes you south to Alexandria, while to the north there is an ongoing debate on whether it will be built to connect directly to the segment to the north of Shreveport or have to find some other way forward. Today, signage is posted for those on I-49 to continue with us on I-20 to wrap back around to the other segment. As we meet I-220 again, we have Louisiana 3132 to the south, while I-49 traffic hops onto I-220. Also of note is I-69, which is projected to come through the Shreveport area. And that will give Shreveport 3 mainline interstate highways. Quite the crossroads for such a small city. Maybe one day Shreveport can become a major logistics hub. We'll see. There's not much west of Shreveport, so after a good 15 to 20 minutes, we reach our final state for I-20, Big Texas. Welcome to the Lone Star State. Entering Texas, we are immediately greeted by the Welcome to Texas signage and a welcome center where you can find this giant Texas silhouette on display. Because one thing that Texans love most about Texas is telling you that they are from Texas. Now, looking at the demographics for this channel, I know you guys love this Texas talk, as it makes up the largest percentage of viewers here. Owing to the massive size of this state, you'll see exits in the 600s, which is far greater than anything we've seen so far on this interstate. Dallas is the control city, but we'll pass by a few decent sized towns along the way. Marshall and Longview are to the north, while we pass Tyler to the south. All three either have full or partial loop highways, as Texas is on a mission to give every decent sized town its own loop highway. Also near Tyler is Texas 49, a 2-lane toll highway known for its high rate of crashes. Use with caution. In Terrell, there is a large Buc-ee's gas station with over 100 pumps for you to fill up on. And something interesting of note is that an exit to US 80 is signed for Dallas, while I-20 is now signed for Fort Worth. Now, I-20 does still indeed enter Dallas, but if you want to get into the heart of Dallas, then this is your exit, as I-20 now bypasses the core of the city to the south. You'll know you're closing in on Dallas as the road widens to 6 lanes and frontage roads start to appear. You'll see signage for I-635. No control city is posted here, but I have one for you. Construction. That's what you'll be seeing if you head up that way. I-635 along with I-20 forms a partial beltway around Dallas. I-20 opens up to 8 lanes out here and is one of the less congested freeways in the Dallas area, since the lion's share of the metro population is on the northern side of the metro. At I-45, we have a nice stack, and you can use it to get into downtown Dallas or head south for Houston. Around the interchange with I-35 East is where we tend to see the traffic pick up on I-20. Since I-20 is usually on the mid-level in these stacks, you don't get the views here that you will see if you pass through the area along I-35 or I-45. The first one with a good vantage point from I-20 is with US 67, signed for Dallas and Cleburne. Now, Cleburne, that was the same name of the county in Alabama, so this Cleburne fellow must have been quite important in these parts. In the mid-cities area, we don't cross any other interstates, but there are definitely more freeways. There's the George Bush Turnpike in Grand Prairie, and Texas 360 in Arlington, the latter of which can also be used to reach the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. Random spots of congestion can occur in this area, perhaps from people slowing down to check out the Texas landscape. Just before entering Fort Worth, we pick up US 287, signed for Waxahachie to the south, and it quickly departs to the north for downtown Fort Worth, as I-20 will also bypass the core of that city to the south. Interstate 820 is also present here, which forms a part of a loop around Fort Worth. This area between 287 and Forest Hill is one of the more busy sections, and trucks are banned from the left lane through here. And at I-35W, we finally get a modern stack interchange that handles the demands of this modern metropolis. West of I-35 West, we'll start seeing signs for Abilene, the next control city for I-20. Southwest Boulevard marks the end of the long 8-lane stretch for I-20, and we are now down to 6. The interchange with the Chisholm Trail Parkway is probably the highest stack for I-20 in the Metroplex. When I-820 comes back around, the 3rd lane exits onto that highway, and we are surprisingly down to 4 as we exit Fort Worth. As we approach I-30, the left lane merges into that roadway while the right lane becomes exit only. Though I-20 is terminating I-30, I-30 is the main roadway here, of which I-20 merges into. Don't get too happy about the 6 lanes. They're temporary as we quickly go back to 4 around Weatherford. Weatherford is your last stop for decent amenities for a while, as west of Fort Worth, I-20 is a good route for understanding the vastness of Texas's size. After all, we're only at exit 408 out here. In Abilene, I-20 passes north of the city to help form a full loop around the city. There's also an I-20 business route that runs directly through downtown. Quick trip, Flying J's, pick your poison because it's over 100 miles for the next major city. But you do get a few spots along the way. We've got Sweetwater. We got a city named Colorado City. That's outside of Colorado. And after you've gotten your fill of Sweetwater, you end up with a big spring. I-27 is supposed to eventually come somewhere out here also. And finally, after an exhausting journey, we reach the Midland and Odessa area, an oil oasis in the middle of nowhere. Surprisingly, Midland has a pretty tall building downtown. Various petroleum-related industries line the interstate through here. And this is your last area of civilization along I-20, but it's also the last area where you might encounter congestion. Texas has given both of these cities their very own loop roads. How kind of them. As we exit Odessa, the mile marker says 113 miles. But don't let this fool you. This is just the mileage to the end of I-20, but not to the next sign of civilization, which is El Paso. In rural West Texas, the speed limit is up to 80, and it gets very lonely out here. But you'll rarely see state troopers, so most drivers are just driving at the speed they feel like it. But you didn't hear that from me. This part of Texas almost feels like a different state from the rest of the Texas that we've seen so far. You'll have plenty of time to get acquainted with nature out here, and surprisingly much of the route has frontage roads along the freeway. Now, if you manage to stay awake, then at some point you will finally see I-10 appear overhead. Your choices are for San Antonio or El Paso. Now, El Paso is almost 3 hours away, and that's the closer of the two. Man, Texas is huge. But either way, I-20 ends here, and I-10 holds the mantle to carry westbound traffic out of Texas towards the west coast. And that is the end of Interstate 20. So there it is, folks, Interstate 20 and how it transformed the South. On the previous video, I said that I-85 was the most important highway in the South, but I don't know. I-20 gives it a run for its money. I guess we can say that I-20 is the most important east-west interstate, while I-85 is the most important north-south one. Or we could just say that for sure, I-20 is the most culturally southern interstate highway in America. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. What is your experience with Interstate 20? Do you think that extension to Wilmington should have been built? What is the best and what is the worst part of Interstate 20 in your opinion? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching as always, and I will see you on the next one.